This is Justin Myers and Alex Nielsen for the final presentation. This is covering what we learned from this class about DevOps. So, using the template of the three ways and the various things within them, I was able to categorize a lot of things that we've been able to learn and things that we're planning to implement into future business scenarios with this semester's material. In the first way, increasing efficiency in the value stream. One of the things that I found a really big emphasis with was finding ways to make the value stream much more efficient. You want to minimize your time between it being a concept and being an item that is usable, and maximize the lifespan of the service or the product so that the end user will have um, a product that they can continue to use. To achieve this, you need to do things such as decreasing batch sizes, eliminating waste, limiting work in process, making your work visible, minimizing handoffs. All of those things help uh, an idea to become a product or a service that can be built on and improved on until it becomes something that an end user will use. The second way is the principles of feedback. The thing that I learned from this section is that when problems happen, because they're going to, even in the best code scenario, if you will, problems are still going to happen. And there's just no two ways about it. So when they happen, you need to address them. Um, you can't be naive or oblivious and just pretend to ignore any problems and say that they don't exist. You need to acknowledge that they're there. And then once you acknowledge them, you need to swarm together to make corrections, to repair things, to move forward so that um, that you can make a more reliable and robust service or application or whatever the case may be. Also, in this process, you need to make it easier for people downstream. If you know that writing code a certain way will make things a lot harder for people downstream, but it's easier for yourself, you should avoid such processes and instead find ways that you can make it efficient and optimal for both you and everybody else, including the end user. You don't want them jumping through a million hoops just because you wanted to write something a certain way. You should make it easier for everybody, for everything from development, operations, production, even all the way down to the end user. The third way was the principles of continuing education and experimentation. Of course, this being the most recent part, um, came to my mind a little bit more readily, and I was able to remember a lot more of this section here. But the biggest thing that I drew from this part here is that failure is okay. Redefining what we call failure to mean something different than what we call it now will allow us to expand our thinking and create something different from what exists. Um, we want to do these things as safely as we can with plans in place for the case of mass disaster or something going completely wrong. But we also want to be able to experiment and move forward. With this idea, we want to be able to find ways to do this, and one of these is to transform local discoveries into global discoveries. An example of this is at my workplace. I work for an internet company, and we didn't have monitoring software that met our needs. So my boss asked me to build one, and as soon as I built this monitoring software and I discovered new ways to use it and whatnot, I shared it with our system administrator, who made it accessible to everybody so that we're all able to use our jobs or do our jobs a little faster and a little better with more ease. Um, That's just one example. Something more simple, if I was collaborating with anybody on this said project, which in this case I wasn't, but if I was, if I would have found an easier way to do things or a simpler way, I could share that with everybody and make it easier for everybody to be able to write the code a little better. We also want to experiment with tension and to find the problem with daily tasks. This can include something as simple as injecting bad code into our code to make sure that it's functioning properly. We can uh, simulate a high traffic scenario so that we can see where the breakpoint is. We can run a variety of different tests and things. We want to just inject failures into our systems to allow ourselves to plan, to mitigate, and ultimately to create more robust and more resilient um, products and processes. The other thing we wanted to do is to have the leaders reinforce the learning culture. If the leaders are derogatory and negative and causing people to be scared of failure, it's going to make people lazy and not want to work because um, they won't know if the boss is going to fire them that day because they're too scared. The leader in the organization needs to have um, the ability to manage those um, who need disciplinary action, but at the same time do it in such a way that we don't blame people for problems. We find out what the root cause was and we solve that instead. And by doing so and creating a positive environment, we can safely experiment and learn and grow as an organization. And that is kind of a brief summary of the things that we learned from this semester, learning about DevOps. Um, as for myself and the company that I work with, there's a great need for a system like this to be in place. It is an environment where everybody fears the CEO because she could fire you at any minute and you don't really know why. She's semi-temperamental in that way. Um, and there's a variety of other issues in that personnel sense, but also in the coding area, we have one set way, and that's the only way, and we need to be willing to branch out and find new ways to do things and experiment and grow and become better. So as for myself, this is a great way to begin doing that is to implement a DevOps culture um, so that we can progress and move forward. Again, this has been Dustin Myers and Alex Nielsen. We are Group 3, and this is our final presentation for the semester.